Hello, this is the second video in the series on drones. In this one, the idea was to talk a lot more about rhythm and different ways of thinking and playing them. Like we talked in the first part about sound, the concept of like being in a liquid, the drop of ink, all of those things we talked about. All those sounds is to play any sound in relation to that drone, and where the resolve or the tension, where we put them was the whole idea, and the different color we're creating. So as we're talking about it, the idea is try to play any of the 12 tone or even play microtone, quarter tone, and just see what kind of emotion feeling you're getting from it. So the idea with rhythm, it's instead of looking at rhythm in the traditional way where we're looking at beats, subdivision of the beats. So for example, if we got the beat, we're used to doing the 16 notes, for example, taka 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 ta, triplets, ta 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 ta, 8 notes, ta ta ta. 8/16, for example, ta ka ta ta ka ta. So all those things are based on the grid. So there's a subdivision of a 16 notes grid or 32 notes grids. You could say the grid can go to an infinite smaller amount, so you could place anything anywhere. But then you're still kind of looking at the idea of the grid. So a lot of those concepts I didn't invent. I mean, I heard from in different culture, in different music. Some of them were I heard or shown to me by like Dana Holt, that learned it from African masters. And the concept with those was, instead of playing along a grid or playing on subdivision, is to play more like speech pattern. Speech pattern which are spoken or sang or played in between anchor point. The advantage with that is, like we're doing with the drones and the sound, what does the sound goes against the main drones? The idea with the rhythmic pattern is, how do we fit against the background? We could play completely out of time. We could play out of time for a while and land. So everything is possible. What are we trying to achieve, and what are we trying to say emotionally, and the color we're trying to bring. The idea of how I think about the rhythm with the drones or a lot of the music is, again, the water. The water, I look at it as a river. So the river is flowing, and in the river there are rocks. So if you're trying to jump in the river without going in the water, for example, you're looking at one rock, then you're jumping to the next rock, you're aiming and you're landing on it as the water is flowing underneath you. In the air, you could do any kind of funny figures, you could do whatever you want. What matters is the landing, that you're aiming, you land on that rock, and you then go to the next one. What you do in between doesn't really matter. For example, jumping on those rocks could be the aiming and the landing on the beat. That is very difficult to do in our standard grid pattern, the grid pattern which is used in all our DAWs. So the grid, you can change the spacing, at some point you can change the tempo, but you cannot really have grids, for example, that are exponential, logarithmic. You cannot have grids that are stretched, grids that are twisted. You can kind of do that with some, for example, some of the on the Electron Digitac. You could have, for example, the 8 different tracks, and on each one you could put a different meter. And the nice thing with those is that the pattern repeat, they don't always end up on the same anchor point. Something I could not do, for example, on the MPC. On the MPC, you always end up falling back on the one in recurring places. Let's put it to practice what we're talking about so it made more sense. The first part I would look at is how to land on the rocks. So if I'm walking right, left, right, left, right, left, ta, ta ta, ta ta, ta ta. So to be able to place the N anywhere, or for example earlier and earlier, and always land the ta on the beat. So for example, ta ta, ta ta, ta ta, ta ta, ta ta, ta ta. So earlier and earlier, but you always land on the beat. So you can do syllables. So 1, 2, 3, 4, ta ta, ta ta, or ma ma, ma na, ma ma, ma ma, ma ma. All the different stretch of it. Let's do a couple examples of those playing with the drone. So for example, I put it earlier and earlier. That will bring us to the concept of exponential rhythm. So exponential rhythm, rhythm that speeds up or slow down. So ta 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 ta, oh ta 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 ta. Same thing. You try to land on the one, but your rhythm is like stretched out in an exponential way before the beat. Let's try that one with the drone. So I was doing some spinning one and slowing down. You can do the same thing with the saxophone or with any of the instrument that you play. That was the two examples of slowing down and speeding up exponential rhythm. The other one is the elastic rhythm. So for example, you can play anything between the beats as long as you land into it. It can be like a phrase. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I need some coffee. right now. Right? So 3, 4. I need some coffee right now. You just think about the phrase. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I think is da 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 ba da. Not thinking about anything where it's in between. You can stretch, compress, do anything you want. All that matters is the landing. So you could hear some stretch rhythm, some compress, but I was doing the example of always landing on the one. The idea is to really try to think about the meaning, the phrases you're trying to sing through the horn, instead of thinking about crazy notation or how you could write it. The idea is a much more of a primal voice and not so much of an intellectual exercise. The idea is just knowing where you are in the river, then you're talking like a normal speech, and then you end up landing. So it's kind of like when you have two individuals that know each other well, they can speak really fast, interjecting words in between. And then the whole speech gets built between those individuals. They never step over each other, which brings us to the idea of playing in the spaces instead of playing together. A lot of the time we try to make people play together, but then people play on top of each other, and then it gets louder and louder. You can have multiple people playing at the same time and just find a space, and everybody can put their note in the space, which build the whole ensemble, because you're placing those next to the other person, and everybody's building the construction together. So let's finish with a few more exponential, elastic, unquantized rhythm out of time, but always trying to land on the one. Right now, I'm always doing on 4 beats to make it really easy to hear on that 8-beat pattern. So I hope that this video gives you some idea in the idea of using exponential elastic rhythm out of time on those music, those drones and those patterns that you play. So it's kind of an overview. I'm going to get much more into some of the specific rhythm on the rhythm video that I'll make in the future, where we'll do some much clearer pattern and you'll see some completely out of time. How can we get ourselves, it's kind of like playing outside harmonically. We think a lot of us playing outside harmonically, but in our type of music, I don't hear as much inside and outside rhythmically. Usually, I mean, it's in time with a rhythm, and then you get the outside with a harmony, and you don't have as all those flexibility of rhythmic pattern in our culture that you have in other culture, which may not have the same type of harmonic richness because of the concept of tuning and the concept of stacking notes and all the other reason why that's happening. And a lot of the reason why rhythm in the music are based on the language, and why do some language have much more accent, like some African language have way more accent because they're using less change in pitches. So how can you communicate the same type of message by using pitch or by using rhythms? All of those do affect the means of communicating and using different tools to achieve the same goals. All right, thank you.